Purple Daily is daily Vikings entertainment. We just want the Vikings to win a Super Bowl before we die.
I will ride with this group.
Seriously, man. Please.
And away we go. Woo!
And it's Purple Access with Judd and Chip Scoggins, of course, Star Tribune sports columnist, my buddy from back in the glory days on the Vikings beat, so much more. And Chipper, the road to the Super Bowl, the potential, starts a week from Sunday, July 20th. We are almost there. The offseason is almost done. The Vikings are set to report, at least the quarterbacks are, and then the rest of the team will come back in that week. And a couple topics I want to get to you, both QB related. But let's start off with this one, actually. Let's start off with J.J. McCarthy. And I think we've talked about this in passing, but I don't know that we've truly addressed it. Because I feel like we should have a conversation setting the expectations for him, or what they should be. Because I think I think there's some who are expecting great things. I think there's cynical people. There's all types of views here. But I'm going to give you my thought quick here, and I want your reaction to it. I think with what the team that's been built offensively, too, around J.J. McCarthy, I think that, although it's a dirty term, if he can start the season managing the game successfully, if he can hit the passes where necessary, but they're going to run more, and at the end of the day, he doesn't match the potentially gaudy statistics that Sam Darnold put up a year ago, but the team still has success. The team still makes the playoffs. In my opinion, that's a win, because I don't think there's anything wrong as a rookie with managing the game correctly, not trying to do too much, and also being put in a position by your coach to succeed.
Yeah, and you didn't even mention my fancy new microphone here. We're stepping it up.
That's a great microphone.
Hey, we got a new season here. We're stepping this up. I think they're a playoff team, Judd. I do. I'm not going to sit here and say 14 wins because I don't think you ever do that at the beginning of the season. But I think they're a playoff team. I think they're built like a playoff team. I think JJ is going to have a good year. I think there'll be some tough moments, maybe a couple tough games. It's just natural. Basically every quarterback has that, except for maybe Pat Mahomes doesn't have a, but maybe
Super Bowl.
I just think I think he's set up to succeed. What I'm most curious of is how does Kevin O'Connell, the play caller, handle JJ initially? Because you mentioned running the ball more, being more of a manager, and that's not in a negative way. It's just I don't think we're going to see him throwing the ball 45 times to start the season. But Kevin O'Connell, his DNA is he likes to push the ball down the field. He likes big chunk plays. He likes, to be aggressive in the passing game. Does he dial that back because now they're more equipped to be a physical running team with what they've done offensively along the line, add in a physical running back? Or does he just stick to who he is and really let the quarterback be aggressive and throw the ball down the field? I'm curious to see how it's going to play out, but I don't worry about injury. From what we saw, he looked like he was running around. He said he feels great. I don't necessarily think that's going to be an issue. And I just go by what we saw at the end of training camp last year. Not saying he was going to be coming out the gates flying, but I thought he made just incredible strides from the start of training camp to when he got hurt. And you saw, you see why they took him number 10 overall and why they're excited about him. So I think he's going to have a good year, and I think they're going to be a playoff team.
And I think to go back to O'Connell, and now he obviously plays a huge role here too, is, he had Kirk, who we'll talk about, and he did a great job with Kirk, but Kirk was a proven product. Like he took a guy who had been statistically very successful, upped his play, but he certainly was not a young guy. He had that mishmash after Kirk got hurt of QBs who had no real chance. And then with Darnold, resurrected a career that had never gotten off the ground. But, you go back to the quote that we've talked about before, which from O'Connell, which is a great quote, which is teams fail young quarterbacks more than young quarterbacks fail teams. This is going to be the first chance he gets to prove that statement. And that's why I think that we should be patient with McCarthy when the season starts and how he's used. Because to your point, if you come out and throw the ball 40 times, you are setting him up to fail potentially. If you come out,
best guess? What's your best guess on how O'Connell does it?
I think he runs the ball more. I think that's why they clearly improved the interior of the offensive line. That's why they went and traded for Jordan Mason. So I think he runs the ball more. I also think play action becomes a bigger threat so that you can hit guys down the field. I mean, to me, there's ways to scheme this up. So J.J. McCarthy looks pretty damn good, but you don't also put him in the game is on your shoulders constantly. So my best guess is he is used in a very wise way by O'Connell.
Yeah, and I think particularly in the red zone, you'll see that show up because they could not run the ball in the red zone last year. I mean, they just didn't. They weren't built to do it. I don't think O'Connell trusted it to be successful. And so on paper, it should be more. And so they should be better at that. And so that should take some of the pressure off him. I mean, we keep going back to that analogy, but, when you're playing Detroit and your quarterback's misfiring, there has to be a plan B. And so I feel like there's more balance to the offense now. And I'm also curious to see how they use McCarthy's athleticism and his speed and elusiveness, because that really jumped out to me, Judd. And I don't know I hope the injury doesn't change that, because when I saw him play the Gophers that year they were here, that's the one thing that really stood out to me. Is like, man, this guy's fast. Like I didn't expect him to be that athletic. And I mean, he used his feet probably more to hurt the Gophers that night as much as anything. But I think that can be a real part of his game. Not saying he's going to be a running quarterback, but just being able to move the pocket, keep things alive, rollouts, bootlegs, all those different things that O'Connell can come up with. So I think there's some creativity there that that'll draw out some strengths of McCarthy. And so it's interesting that he talked to J.J. did talk a lot about. We talked to him at minicamp about layering throws and learning how to do that, because we know he has the the fastball. We know he can really fit it in there, but he talked a lot about getting it up over linebackers or layering in there. And so that's where he felt like he's had to make the most growth and kind of learn the most because he talked about making mistakes and trying things that might be uncomfortable for him early on. So I'm curious to see that intermediate game and kind of how that comes together. Might see more screen game stuff from him.
Yeah, and Hawkinson as well, because you can layer throws to tight ends, but you don't necessarily have to. Yes, I see them using more of the short passing game to create favorable conditions, because quite frankly, at the end, and O'Connell's talked about this, every coach does, but you want to stay out of 3rd and 8, 3rd and 9. 3rd and 2, 3rd and 3, and now you go play action, and JJ's beating the guy. Justin Jefferson has beaten the guy downfield, so. I think there's ways, but yeah, you're right though. The layering of the throws thing, I think is going to take some time. There's no question he has the arm strength to gun it in there, but when you actually have to get it over a guy, like a little touch, I think that's where he probably still has the most room to grow.
Or those sideline passes, the out there. And I'm also curious to see, and I think he'll be good in this area, but so many of these games they're just coming down to a drive, right? 4-minute drill, whatever, a drive. I do think O'Connell's good in those situations. I think the fact that JJ's played it, in big games, national championship games, those things, I think that helps. But so much of success in the NFL is like when the game's online, can you go make that drive? Or can you have a 4-minute drive to ice the game? And they've been good about that. Like that quality is what separates a 8-win season from a 12-win season. Do you win more of those than you lose? Because so many of these games come down to a field goal. So, but I think his maturity, I think the fact that he's been in a pressure program at Michigan and played in national championship games, college football playoff, I think all that stuff factors in. Now the NFL's different, obviously, but having that kind of those repetitions in those pressure situations helps.
Yeah, I think to go back to your point about athletic ability, I think that one's huge too, because not that he has to become, and he won't, a running quarterback, but the conditions of moving the pocket. Like Kirk struggled with that. Kirk struggled to move the pocket. It's a hard thing. It's funny because the quarterbacks that make it look simple, it's like, why can't everyone do that?
Exactly,
And then it's like, because it's really difficult. But yeah, the ability to move the pocket, to change things, to me, and we sort of saw this in the off-season practices as well. The other thing where I think it's just going to take some time is there are definitely throws that he makes that he could make in college that the guys here are too good for. To your point, the sideline pass.
Yeah.
That's one that I think you can get away with at Michigan against a lot of DBs. In this league, they jump those and they disguise. So they jump with a disguise, so you don't see you don't see it coming until the ball has left your hand, and now your receiver is standing there hopelessly on the sideline while the DB jumps the route.
Well, and we saw that at the first day of mandatory, where Byron Murphy Jr. jumps that. I don't know if that was a miscommunication between J.J. and Jefferson or what happened there, but a veteran Pro Bowl cornerback did something to make the quarterback, rush, throw a ball where he could. That would have been a pick six. So there's going to be moments like that where he, it's like anything. He's going to be a much better quarterback week 14 than he is week 1. I mean, he's just going to learn so much, and I think having O'Connell to help him navigate through and all the coaches that they have. But Judd, this is not a situation where a quarterback gets drafted high and he's surrounded by terrible thing, and they're saying prop him up.
Right.
Come on,
exactly.
Be a savior. This is not that, right? They're not asking him to come in and be a savior. Now he's got to play quarterback. He's got to make important throws, and he's got to play at a high level. But the infrastructure they put around him, I mean, like I said, you're set up to succeed. And so this team is not built for anything other than being in the playoffs and being a team that wants to be, a contender.
Yeah, and I think that's also where the improvements to your defense come in, because
Sure.
he literally has, McCarthy has healthy everything going for him. Like, he's got a defense that's going to be that should be improved and was already pretty damn good. He's got an offense that's got a remade offensive line interior wise. So, but yeah, I find it interesting because the conversations I think are going to turn to, well, he didn't do this, didn't do that. Should we expect that? And
well, he's going to struggle.
You nailed
times where he struggles. I mean,
and you nailed it though. He's also going to be like, if you can get him through the first half of the schedule by being smart, you probably can turn him loose a little bit more in the second half. So the evolution is going to be really interesting to watch, but the expectation has to be at least somewhat, if not tempered, realistic.
Yeah, and it's again, I'm fascinated by to see how O'Connell, what his play calling looks like early on, because
agreed. Yes,
we just know how much he likes throwing the ball down the field. And when you have those receivers, I don't see why not. But so it's going to be interesting to see how he kind of marries this more physical run game with that.
So you sent me a note a couple of days ago. You have consumed the first edition.
Two editions. I watched 2 last night. Yeah.
Of Quarterback on Netflix. It's the second time in 3 years since this documentary format debuted. They did wide receiver with Justin Jefferson last year.
Yeah.
Kirk, of course, was a breakout star in season 1 as a Viking during O'Connell's first season, and Kirk Cousins is now in this one again. What were your thoughts about Kirk Cousins, if not revisionist history, sort of trying to go back and recreate what might have been if he hadn't left the Vikings?
Well, it's interesting that everybody's kind of latched onto the quote. I don't know if the viewers have watched it, but and I love this show because it really shows behind it. Now, I'm sure they get to pick and choose. They have some editorial control over it. But he did, he did admit, this is in real time when they're filming this, I think, that he felt misled by the Falcons after they took Michael Penix Jr. And that had he known that, I think his quote was, there was no reason we wanted to leave Minnesota if we knew they were both going to take quarterbacks high, that he might have redone it. But he also acknowledged that, and I'm sure this was Kwesi, that they wanted to go year by year by year, and he didn't want to do that. And he said, well, that's not what we're interested in. And Kirk said, they said, well, this is what we're doing. Thankfully, they stood by what they wanted to do, their plan. And they came in with a blueprint all along, Judd, and it was to draft a quarterback, to get younger at quarterback, to And they did not deviate from that. And I gave him credit at the time, and I think it was an easy decision once you saw what Atlanta was going to offer.
Right.
But I think no matter what, Kwesi was ready to turn this over and start over.
He was. So here's the thing too, though. I think that if anything, Chipper, this reinforces how it played out, which we've speculated on previously.
Yeah.
I think that O'Connell would have gladly taken Kirk back. So if Kirk had come back on Kwesi in the Vikings terms, I think that O'Connell, I do not think, despite pushback from others, I don't think that O'Connell was kicking Kirk out the door by any means. But you know what this goes back to? And Kwesi has not been the same with the media since, but it goes back to his comments about Kirk Cousins not being that guy necessarily in, I think, the first national interview he did
USA Today, right?
Yeah, USA Today with Jory Epstein in like May of 2022. He basically spelled it out. He basically said, I don't think that this is the guy. This is not the type of guy. He's fine, which is true. Yeah. But if anything to me, but I just love the whole thing with Kirk because, Kirk again, contractually, got a great contract, got exactly what he wanted. And now it's like, this is why if you truly wanted to play and wanted to control your fate, this would have been the year, especially at your age coming off that injury, because it's not like this is your first big contract. You got millions in the bank. This would have been your first chance to say, you know what? I'll take your contract. I love playing here. I love O'Connell. Because I do think you might have had some very internal disagreement then, because I think O'Connell would have pushed to bring Kirk back.
Well, because, yes, most NFL players, you say, you want a 1-year deal or you want a 3-year deal? They're going to take the 3.
Of course.
But look how much money he's already made. But even if he said, okay, I want to come back for 1 year, that would have been an interesting conversation and debate in either Kevin's office or Kwesi's office to figure out, okay, you're going to do it 1 more year, run it back, or I don't know, Judd. I don't know that it necessarily, if he would have said, you know what, okay, I'll do the 1 year. Do you think O'Connell wins that argument?
It's weird because he also, so Kirk, a year ago, July, Seifert reported, our friend from ESPN, Kevin Seifert, he reported that the Vikings were planning to draft a quarterback in the McCarthy draft regardless.
Sure, yeah.
Kirk, in a podcast with The Athletic, came out and said, O'Connell had told me if we sign you back, we don't see taking a quarterback, which might have been a lie. I don't know.
Yeah.
But I think it would have been, I think if Kirk had said, you know what, screw it. I'm coming back. I like it here. That's enough. I've made a ton. I want to win. I think it would have been really, really interesting. But I'm with you. The Vikings landed in the right place.
Oh, yeah. And, have you seen part 2 yet?
No. I've just
You
read
should
the
watch
quote.
it because
I just
it's
saw the
interesting
quotes.
because it's classic Kirk. I'll just kind of walk through some things that I watched it last night and I just found it fascinating because he kept talking throughout the whole episode about how different things are and how uncomfortable he feels, and it's just not clicking. And he said, we have a lot of emotions, more emotions than I've ever seen. And you can tell he was just, there was a lot of tension inside of him about not feeling cohesive with everybody, not having the just the newness of it, right?
Right.
How it's supposed to run. You can tell he's just, it's so new. He doesn't have it down yet.
Right.
And it ends with a game, and I can't remember who they were playing, but it was early. I think it was week 5.
Okay.
They win without scoring a touchdown, kick a 58-yarder at the horn. They had like a minute and a half to go down and try to score. It goes nowhere. They basically get a pass interference that puts them in field goal range. And they won, but he was like, you could tell he's like in his head. He's like, this is not going well. This is just not going well. And to the point, Judd, that they're in the car driving home with his brother, and they stop at a place to get fast food. But then he said, I've learned this from Peyton Manning. Rather than text, send a voice memo to your coaches right after the game. Let them know how you're feeling. So he's driving home from the game on his phone, calling his different coaches, just saying, I'm playing terrible. We need to come in and figure this out. I need to talk to you, figure out what you think about it. I just don't feel comfortable. We're not – this thing didn't work. That didn't work. I'm just not playing up to my standard. And he said I can't remember if he was telling them or if he was telling the camera, but he's like, The leg's fine. It's not the ankle. It's not the Achilles. I feel healthy. It's not that. It's just I'm not playing well. So even early on, even after a win, he was leaving long voicemails to coaches like.
That's him.
Yeah, but it was classic Kirk where he analyzes and overanalyzes, and maybe that's why he's good. Has survived this long in the NFL. I don't know, but
Right.
but it was. I found that part interesting.
It is. It's not surprising. So, like, this is a guy. So, the two sides of Cousins, and I don't know if this comes from family or what, but the two sides of Kirk are so interesting because he has always tried, post obviously Washington, to milk teams out of as much guaranteed cash as possible.
Yeah.
Yet there's a side of him that loves to be comfortable,
Mm-hmm.
and he had found such a comfort here with O'Connell. And look, I'm glad he's gone, but the reality is, at his age, coming off that injury, I am really surprised. I'm not surprised. I'm a little surprised that he didn't take the comfort of returning to a place that he knew with a guy that he knew, and instead, because he hates change. He seems to hate change.
Well, and there was a scene in part one where he's outside with his wife, and he's talking about how awkward it's going to be to see. He's like, well, hey, I used to throw to Jefferson. I used to throw to Jordan Ass, and now someone else is doing it. He compared it to, like, you see someone dating an ex-girlfriend. Like, that's what
But he dumped her.
Yeah, but it's like, you're the one that took the money. You didn't have to take you very well said, we want more security and we want more money and you did it, so you have to live with it.
Right.
That's the decision you made. If you, I don't know. I don't. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe if they said, one more year, let's run it back and see, but I just think there's also, and it might have gone all the way up, that this appetite to have a new quarterback, this is a big part of why they brought Kevin O'Connell in. Find the franchise quarterback that you can build, that's on on the rookie deal that you can build around him.
Yeah. Yeah, I believe, just speculating here, that O'Connell would have taken Kirk back. I do not believe that they would not have drafted a quarterback. I don't believe
either.
Kirk on that.
Either. No.
And I don't know if O'Connell said that to make him feel good at the time. I firmly believe that they would have taken a QB. If they hadn't, it would have been disastrous because, like, you had to at some point in time.
Sure.
But I also believe that O'Connell liked him enough. Now,
I do too. I think the relationship,
or your point's a good point, which is, okay, but what's the pushback in the building? And at some point, would O'Connell back down and say, okay, fine, mercy, I give up? So it would have gotten, I think it would have gotten real dicey. And you're right. The Falcons made the end game easy. For everybody.
And at some point, you have to say, okay, this has gone as far as it's going to be able to go with this quarterback. Like, you got to try something else because you don't have the money to fix these other areas, and they had other areas that absolutely had to be fixed. And so you're just – that would have been delaying the obvious.
Correct.
Right?
Well, and do you win 14 games with Kirk? Do you win a playoff game? I mean, Sam Darnold for the last game of the regular season and playoffs, not being good, he was damn good. Like, you sort of proved sort of proved that you could win without him, which didn't shock me. But it is. I don't know, man. Kirk Cousins will go down as one of the most polarizing and somewhat internally conflicted, as far as I'm concerned. Yeah,
it's interesting because, particularly after Zimmer left, when he felt more comfortable to be himself. Last couple of years, I enjoyed the weekly conversations because you kind of saw some of the personality.
Yep.
It's quirky personality, but he, at least he had some funny stories that he would share in kind of his own way. But and it's not, I just think there's a ceiling there with him that what it is.
Right.
And I don't think you're going to go above it. And so that's why they landed in a great spot, I think. Now, they got to be proven right on J.J. I mean, they're staking their reputation that they found the right guy and that they can develop him. But the idea and the model for what you're doing and the structure is what you had to do.
Right, because McCarthy has to prove himself. But if he does, you've got 4 years left essentially of a team control quarterback, and now you can go spend like they did. Like,
exactly.
If Kirk Cousins had come back here and let's just say he stayed here for 2 years, And he did say that it sounds like there were some guarantees for 25. He might not have been here, but partial guarantees. But let's just say that ate up cap space. You sure as heck don't go out and get a new guard, a new center, 2 new defensive tackles, re-sign Murphy, sign a cornerback. That don't happen.
No, so, you're limited by how you can 100%. Build out. So,
and that's what I said. That's why I said I don't expect McCarthy to be fantastic in week 1, but you have to keep in mind they built a better team, and if he can just manage the game successfully and you can win that way, who cares what the stats are?
Now watch, they're going to come out and throw it 45 times week 1.
I don't think O'Connell's that good. Who knows?
Yeah, but it's going to be. I do think it's going to be fascinating to watch his development over this year to see starting point to ending point and how much growth you see and just maturation as an NFL quarterback.
Absolutely. All right. Well, we'll talk.
We're close, man. We're close.
We'll talk next week as well. I think we're going to do it on Wednesday.
Yeah.
And so we will. Well, heck, we could preview quarterbacks reporting the team reports. Then I think report probably midweek. I have seen training camp dates. I have not seen a schedule
20th?
yet.
I think 20th.
The 20th, the quarterbacks report. That's a Sunday.
Yeah.
But then, at some point midweek,
22nd. Yeah.
The team will report, and then I think we'll get a practice, and then welcome back to football Saturday, the next Saturday, because we all like to welcome football back. All right, Chip Scoggins, great stuff. We'll talk to you later.
See you, bro.